Hey everyone, welcome to Office Hours with Cloud Posse. It's April 29th, 2026, and I'm your host, Eric Osterman. For those of you who are new to Office Hours, this is where we discuss the latest DevOps news, AWS announcements, and Terraform insights, all sourced from our sweetops community, plus a live Q&A you can't find anywhere else. Real quick, before we get started, I'm the founder and CEO of Cloud Posse. Cloud Posse has developed the ultimate IAC framework. It's called Atmos. If you haven't heard of it, check it out. It's the best way to run Terraform, OpenTofu, Packer, Ansible, Helmfile, and the list goes on. So go to atmos.tools to check that out. Atmos.tools. Quick note on how to get the most out of today's session. The format is informal. You can engage as much as you'd like and ask questions. And if you're curious about any of our open source tools like Atmos, this is a great place to ask. And with that said, let's see. So for those on the recording, we host these calls live. You can join these live sessions by registering at cloudposse.com/office hours. Again, cloudposse.com/office hours. And I do have one small ask. If you find any portion of today's session valuable, share it with your team. You can find the recordings at youtube.com/cloudposse. So with that said, here's what caught my attention this week. First one was, maybe we dropped this last week. I think the slight mishap there, but yeah. So SpaceX is acquiring Cursor under certain terms. Kind of curious the utility of that, other than X trying to get into more enterprises. But since we talked about that last week, I'm going to skip over that. The other one is ChatGPT Images 2.0, which has come out, and it is scary how good it is. If you click on the demo images that they have there, its ability to add depth and photorealism to photos just really makes it feel like game over for fraudsters who want to impersonate whatever they want through photograph. Pictures or it didn't happen, that expression does not matter anymore. Any thoughts on ChatGPT Images before we move on? All right, let's see what this one was. Yeah, so I have not had a chance to check it out yet. I believe this was not available yet in Claude or Conductor, which I use together with Claude Code. But it is somewhere, it is applying some of the improved reasoning for doing reviews on pull requests. So has anyone, I guess you only get 3 free reviews, so that's pretty useless. Anyways, anyone try it out? All right. Then next. So OpenTofu had this a number of releases ago, the ability to have dynamic sources in module definitions, basically variable interpolations inside of module sources. This is now coming to BSL Terraform. So perfect example of how competition is good, I guess. Took them long enough. Any other inputs related to improvements to BSL Terraform or this feature? Next. Paul, I believe you shared this.
This is just just for information, some code samples there. If you run into resources that aren't yet supported in the Terraform AWS provider, you can use the Terraform. I don't provide examples of that, but you can use there's a link there. You can use the Terraform AWS Cloud Control API provider instead to access them at a lower level. The examples I have are Python and then AWS CLI. Just there to point out differences in semantics that are important. You get, for example, an S3 bucket that's a whole bunch of other resources, the lifecycle configuration, all that. You can configure all of it in one place.
Yeah.
And so that's different. And then you also get um, set-based semantics for things like tags, where all the new AWS API operations are like removing one tag at a time. Using Cloud Control, if you ever have to, you can still edit the whole set of tags in those cases.
Mm.
So those are the main
Through
differences to note.
patching. Got it.
Yeah.
All right. And this we did talk about last week. This we talked about last week. Um, yeah, talked about. Yeah, so this was another thing that came out, I think Thursday of last week. This is my nightmare. Yeah, the only sigh of relief I could breathe with was this was not 1Password. But Bitwarden is a very popular alternative to 1Password, and that their CLI was compromised in a supply chain attack that is terrifying. Anyone hear about more fallout related to the Bitwarden compromise? Bitwarden, I believe, is that the open source alternative for password management?
I always thought KeyPass was the free open source.
Oh, maybe. Let's see. Yeah, open source security solutions, open source password manager. So yeah, it is fair game on open source these days by uh, by security researchers and hackers alike. Also, OpenAI, I believe, um, identified that they had a vulnerable version of Atlas, or Axios rather, which was the NPM library that, you know, every JavaScript project uses to do REST requests. Um, apparently there's no risk that apparently there's no indication that their key signing for macOS apps was compromised, but as an abundance of caution, they rotated their secret. So we've talked about this a lot over the past few office hours. It feels like there's been a decline in Claude Code. It came to head on Hacker News, where even uh, engineers at Anthropic were chiming in and saying that they were looking at it seriously. They came up with three root causes. So they acknowledged that the quality had gone down, but it was not model quality. It was at a product level, and three things happened. One was that they changed the default thinking level from high to medium, and that had a noticeable effect, made it feel stupider. There was a caching problem for context, which meant that basically context wasn't used in memory effectively. And then lastly, drawing a blank. Let's see, what was the and then lastly, they had tweaked the system prompt to be more Spartan, less verbose in its responses. And apparently that had a noticeable impact on the quality of the reasoning. So they've rolled those things back, and hopefully the quality comes back to where it was. I don't know about you guys, but it definitely made me more interested in trying Codex again, especially when there are any 50 was all the 503 or 529 service outages.
I mean, honestly, I've just been going to Crush and using StepFun 3.5 for all the simple stuff, and it
Yeah.
gets basically Claude results in about, 2 or 3 minutes.
Hmm.
It only costs like 8 or 9 cents.
Hmm. That is quite affordable. So we've talked about a number of these solutions over the past week. Here's a new one that came out. It's for keeping credentials secure from your agents and the tools they call. This is a relatively new project, and I wouldn't bring it up if it wasn't from InFiscal. InFiscal makes another product, I believe it's open source, for secrets management that competes with HashiCorp Vault. Now they have released Agent Vault, which is a proxy that so basically you can use what's the word, like minted token, invalid tokens. It basically makes up passwords on the fly for your apps to use that then get translated to real requests through the proxy. That means that the agents and the tools they call never actually have real credentials that could leak. So that is an open source project under Agent Vault, and they talk about how it works here. So I thought this was interesting because this is a large engineering organization, a firm. A firm, if you're not familiar, they're the ones I believe who do. They're like the Stripe of loans, so you can check out and have and pay with credit basically when you check out. So they have a large engineering organization, surprisingly 800 engineers. And over a 1 week period, they retooled everybody. So everybody's now using agentic tools vis-a-vis Claude Code. It's interesting because it shows how they went about it by first kind of creating a skunkworks team with about 9 engineers that developed what they believed would be the working workflows that others could follow. Then they picked a week in February where they gave everyone kind of the opportunity to switch over to this new development workflow. Not to be surprised, reviews was where everything broke down in the process, and that's what we've seen as well without 800 engineers at Cloud Posse. So for our purposes, CodeRabbit has been pretty amazing to speed up reviews. It's not a silver bullet, but it's at least bronze plated. Another small announcement. So GitHub Copilot is moving to usage-based billing. I'm guessing GitHub took a look at their AI bill and were freaked out as they're rolling out more and more things like agentic workflows and people using Copilot to compose new PRs, and inside of GitHub Actions as well. Usage was, not sustainable under their previous pricing. So now you get your price doesn't change per se, but it translates now to a certain number of credits, and then you pay for credits above that you consume. So this is interesting, especially in light of something else that I saw trending on Hacker News today. But OpenAI is pushing for like a global ID system, biometrically backed. On the one hand, I can see why that's desirable. On the other hand, the post trending on Hacker News right now is even more compelling, I would say, about dying on a hill. This is one of those. Online age verification. And basically this whole online ID system or concept of online ID systems seems more and more like a Trojan horse to crack down on anonymity online and the freedoms that come along with that. Yeah, nothing's easy. That's all I have on that one. All right, so security is top of mind right now on GitHub and GitHub Actions. Let's face it, it's the elephant in the room if you are using GitHub, and they've had a pretty bad PR month, you could say, at this point. Every single day, I think they've had a noticeable outage over the past month. Hacker News posts daily on it, and then these supply chain issues coming out. I think I have 3 posts related to GitHub today that's worth talking about. So first, with security on GitHub, there's been a few things that have exasperated things. And one is that, there's been no great way to have reproducible runs without maybe pinning to SHAs your GitHub actions, but that obfuscates what you're actually pinning to in the version. So they're adding the ability to lock your workflows with like something akin to a lock file that you would see like in Go. So then you'll at least know that what you are pinning to is what you think you are pinning to. Pushing more towards immutable releases. This is already available on GitHub. There's a checkbox you can enable for immutable releases. I'm not sure if it's an enterprise feature or not, but it definitely is available on open source repositories. They're also going to change the privilege model as well to least privilege for a certain number of things. Today, for example, you can access secrets if you have write access to a repo. That changes by default. The whole concept of repository rule sets and organizational rule sets are now going to be extended as a policy engine to control what your workflows can do across the organization and within a repository. That's a really nice improvement. So you can categorically prevent certain types of attacks without having to audit every single workflow. They are going to enable an egress firewall for at least the GitHub hosted runners, which is a nice add. I can't help but think that they are taking a chunk out of Step Security's playbook. So Step Security is one of the foremost security companies for hardening GitHub Action workflows and GitHub Action runners. They have some GitHub Actions that will help you harden your runners. Limiting egress is one of those things. So it looks like GitHub is bringing that into the platform. Let's see what else stood out. Yeah, I think that was most of what stood out to me. And I don't know when's the right time to talk about it, but because of this backlash, because of this, these negative press and fallouts, there's been maybe a lot more vocal people coming out saying they're leaving GitHub. Mitchell Hashimoto is one. We'll talk about that in a moment. I understand the sentiment and the feeling doing that, but I don't necessarily know that that is going to solve the problem. One can self-host, version control and for the benefits of one's own company. Makes sense. I get it. You can do that. But from an open source movement perspective and collaboration, I think we really do need a hub. And, throwing out the baby with the bathwater isn't necessarily solving it. What I like about what GitHub is doing here is that they're owning it. They're not dismissing it. Yes, there's been a spotty record as of late, but I'm going to show you another post that kind of explains that. And I much rather work with a company that has the experience dealing with all of these threats daily. They've seen everything under the sun and they're doing something about it. So, with that said, it doesn't get worse. With security, with the help of AI, disassembled the GitHub binaries and uncovered a zero-day remote code execution vulnerability affecting GitHub Server, GitHub Enterprise, and it's at the control plane layer where I believe it was a malformed or a carefully crafted payload would allow arbitrary commands to be executed on the control plane, and all that was required was access to that server. So if you had an account on a GitHub Enterprise server, that was enough. And if you had an account on GitHub, that was enough. And they were able to execute any arbitrary command on the control plane of GitHub. Didn't necessarily mean that they could access, your source code or do anything else, but you could see where that could have gone. I don't believe there's any evidence that this was exploited and this was a friendly fire, friendly attack from Wiz. They are some pretty prolific security researchers. Thoughts on this?
Yeah, it kind of sucks for GitHub.
Yeah, it's probably all the ammunition that a lot of companies needed who wanted to make an argument to move.
I think I saw a corresponding blog that GitHub posted about this article as well, and they also wanted to highlight that they gave up one of their biggest bug bounties to Wiz because of this vulnerability.
They offered a bug bounty, that the largest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they even called it out as this is one of the biggest in our history. It's like, no, just give us a number. That would be nice.
Yeah. And I mean, we talked about it last week. Like, these are exciting times. Like every single week, a major company, a major vulnerability is being disclosed. Last week it was Vercel. The embargo is over. So Ingest had another severe vulnerability. Before that, cal.com. Now, GitHub. This is only the beginning. The AI is getting better. The number of companies peddling the wares that do this are increasing.
There's
I
always
remember
just
this was like a really tricky one as well, because apparently it was all down to a comma. So that carefully crafted command, it was just one of the git push arguments that you can pass in. It's a comma separated list of things you can pass in. But if
Yeah.
you don't get the quotes
Yeah.
right and you pass the comma in, well, now you've got access to the server.
Yeah. Yeah. It was just a delimiter. I don't know if it was a comma or semicolon, but yeah, it was something
Oh,
as
right, it
simple
was
as
a
that.
colon. I think you're right. And I also remember reading the GitHub blog post about this, and they mentioned they were trying really hard to figure out if anyone else before Wiz had also carried out this attack. And their whole explanation was, well, the only mechanism to carry out this attack, you have to write to a particular file, and no one apart from the Wiz guys had touched it. So that was how they determined there was no one else who could have possibly been affected by this. But you do have to wonder, right? Like, is
Yeah.
that what the AI told them? Or
Yeah.
and who's to say you couldn't execute a command to erase your tracks after you're done?
right?
Yeah. Can you
And
imagine
that's
how much
exactly
fun the
what
NSA is having right now?
yeah. But think about it this way, right? We all just vibe code our own GitHub, right? And then if, any one person's like GitHub is vulnerable, then no problem. That's just that one person just has their own vibe coded Git repository, right?
Well, so
I'm being sarcastic, by the way.
okay, yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. We can do that. But yeah, and I know this is not your point. My what I don't like to see is a fracturing of a GitHub per se. Uh I wouldn't be opposed to like if there was an official federated model for GitHub, that this could become decentralized, maybe something like that. But from a discovery standpoint, I think it's critical And as ironic as this statement is, I would say from a supply chain standpoint, it's critical. I know GitHub has a shoddy record right now. They're doing things about this, but imagine having 1,000 GitHub clones and trying to solve supply chain attacks that way with underfunded, under-resourced, undercapitalized companies hosting source control. Not going to happen. I'd much rather have, a steward like Microsoft run GitHub and let's fix GitHub so that this is not going to be the case. And this has to be solved. Like, whether or not GitHub continues to remain the dominant force in open source and dependency management, that can be argued, but it will be a significant one, regardless. Michael?
Yeah, I agree. I think for open source, like you said earlier, it's good to have a hub. And I guess you haven't gotten to the Ghosty announcement yet, but I mean, when you think about the exodus of projects away from GitHub, there's
Mhm.
still framework dependencies that are explicitly dependent
Yeah.
on GitHub out of the box. And I'm thinking about the Go ecosystem,
Yeah,
because when you
yeah,
say go install this string, organization slash package, by
yeah.
default, it goes to GitHub. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the way that I understand it. So if
Well, it's
you have prod,
nuanced.
yeah, okay,
It
okay,
goes
sure.
through a Google proxy for all dependencies, and then it goes to
Got it.
GitHub. Yeah,
Okay, okay, fair enough.
but
But
yeah,
I guess what I'm getting at is, if, to your point, if everybody says, "Oh, I'm gonna bounce off of GitHub," and everybody being, I don't know, some core libraries that a lot of other frameworks depend on, or some
yeah,
core framework, then what happens? Because now what? I have to open an account here, I have to open an account here, I need a cert for this, and that just
yeah, yeah.
it
I need
makes
to
the
increase my rate limits here. I need another personal access token to access this.
yes,
And yeah, that
and the attack
it's
surface just
creating
gets
more
bigger too.
problems. Yeah, I feel like it's a knee-jerk reaction. But I mean, I can understand like if it's inhibiting your day-to-day ability to deliver software, that has a real cost, and I understand it. But as a permanent decision, I'm not sure it makes sense. Um,
Yeah, running away from the problem doesn't fix the problem because it just is gonna catch up with you eventually.
yeah, I agree. And it's interesting, sometimes people get fired because they did something wrong at their job. And I understand sometimes there needs to be a scapegoat and heads sometimes have to roll, but it also means that that valuable lesson now is available for the next person to relearn versus the person who had to learn it the first time. So I skipped another post because this is apropos right after that. And I think this tells the story of what's going on at GitHub, right? Like we're all like wondering, what the hell is going on? There's a lot of, flippant, responses saying, "Oh, it's because Microsoft bought them." And I get it. There's some animosity there. Not from me at all. I still look at Microsoft as stewards of open source. So, um, but it reminds me of the early days of Twitter, right? The fail whale, when you constantly saw that, that's what Microsoft has felt like. Well, here is what that looks like. The radical growth just over the last few years that they've seen on GitHub. And keep in mind that a lot of that growth is probably unfunded. Like, I wonder if you overlaid the number of free repositories, enterprise versus non-enterprise growth here, what that looks like. So, uh, 20 million new repositories created per month. And then, running GitHub Actions on top of that, et cetera. And that's all, and the rate of commits must be, is going up significantly due to AI, et cetera. So they've identified a lot of single points of failure that they are working through remedying. They've been making some optimizations throughout the site, like when you click on an issue, it opens in a modal without loading the whole page, so it's a more efficient request. They admitted that the search outage that we had yesterday was due to a bot network hack, a botnet attack, and you can imagine that the amount of adversarial users and bots working against them on all of this. And any new platform that you go to has to learn all of that GitHub has had to learn and have defenses for. So I think it's pretty good. So I can only imagine that things will hopefully start to recover over the next quarter to 6 months at GitHub. And like on X.com or aka Twitter, you don't really see outages anymore. So these things are solvable.
I'll just expand on the comment that I posted in the chat about GitHub giving so much for free. I'm thinking about well, I guess a couple underlying points there. Yes, they are backed by Microsoft. Yes, they do make money. Yes, people do pay for GitHub, but I wonder what the fraction is of free, like that chart you showed, like you said, free activity or
Yeah.
activity from free users versus paid users, and the people who just see GitHub as an attack surface. That, like, what if they did something? What if they, I don't know, this is a big what if, big look back, but what if when they came on, they said, hey, we're going to have a free tier like AWS, any other, cloud provider worth their salt, to say, hey, you can come on for free, do whatever you want for a month, have
Yeah.
fun, kick the tires, whatever. Then after that, guess what? You're going to have to put down a credit card and start paying for these services to provide the support for the service that you depend on, something like that. I mean, if they did something like that now, I know it's like be wailing and gnashing the teeth and riots all up and down
Yo, it would
Silicon
be.
Valley.
Could you imagine? Yeah, yeah. They
Yeah,
tried to charge us like 1,000th of a penny or something per minute of GitHub Actions usage, and there was
yeah,
mutiny.
yeah,
Uh,
exactly. So, I mean, it really just kind of bothers me that people don't see the value in something that they get for free. And
yeah.
at the same time, like you said, they've seen everything because they do have such a wide body of usage. Um, they're an amazing attack service, and they do a pretty good job of staying up. They got problems, yeah, but it's like, where are you gonna go that they have this much experience? They provide this much stuff for free, and you can just about trust them. It's like a new service pops up. Hey, we're the new GitHub. Talk to me in 10 or 15 years down the road. I wouldn't trust it.
Well, GitLab is not that bad, but I don't know if we can compare it to GitHub, for example. So I do agree with you.
Oh yeah, I'd say the same thing for GitLab. Yeah. They've been in the game for a minute too.
I wonder
Anybody
how
who's
the
not GitHub, GitLab, or Bitbucket right now, and
Yeah.
people, they don't really talk about Bitbucket, but hey, I'm okay if it's Git and it works. It's got some type of runnery type stuff, CICD on the back end. Sure, GitLab, Bitbucket, I'll take it. But yeah,
And
not
some
leaving
funding
those
to
three.
keep the game going.
I
Yep.
didn't hear that. What was that?
And some funding to keep the game and the ball going.
Yeah. Funding might not. Yeah. Funding might not be enough. Um, I mean, I think what makes it work for a company like for GitHub owned by Microsoft is Microsoft makes, this much money from things that are not GitHub. Just like, it was unsustainable in the beginning for YouTube to exist on its own, then under the guidance of Google that could provide, unlimited free bandwidth, those bandwidth problems went away and they turned it into a ridiculously profitable product. So this is the post we were alluding to, which is Ghosty, the terminal emulator by Mitch Hashimoto, of course, of HashiCorp fame. And what I liked, Mitchell, he really brings a human element to everything he talks about, and I could really relate to what he talks about here. I didn't realize, uh, how kindred some of those spirits were, like about my feelings about GitHub and uh, how valuable I feel it is to open source and my life and my company and everything I do. And he acknowledges all of that. And then we're leaving GitHub. Not an easy decision to make, but and they haven't decided where they're going, only that they've decided to leave. So more on that, I guess, to come.
Does he go into any specifics beyond the usual outages and availability issues?
Yeah, well, so he goes into like that he kept a journal for the past 3 weeks or something, and then marked an X every for the past month. Put an X next to every date where there was a GitHub outage that in fact impacted his ability to work, and almost every day had an X.
Right.
So, and this is where I get it, and I could understand making this movement maybe. Making this move, but committing to it longer term, I don't know. But that's me.
That's a big move. I mean, the project has a ton of stars and collaborators already, right?
Yeah. And to Michael's point earlier, well, okay, so it's not, I was going to say it's not written in Go. I forget what is Ghosty written in. But
Like
my guess is
Zig or something like that.
Zig, yeah. So it has a ton of dependencies nonetheless, probably on projects that are not there. So
That's a drastic move. I'm keen to follow how that goes. Even if it goes badly or well, at least that's going to be a lesson to learn.
yeah. So I tried to see the silver lining in all of this. What's two silver linings that I saw was on this post. There were a number of GitHubbers, people who work at GitHub, who commented and shared how loyal or faithful they are to the company or the movement of what is GitHub. And also was interesting was Hashimoto. One of the reasons he wrote Vagrant apparently in the beginning was he thought, hey, it'd be pretty cool to get a job at GitHub. Obviously, his life took a different direction, and now he has a pretty good life because of it. But it just shows to show the place in people's heart that GitHub holds for what they provide. So the fact that there are these committed, loyal people inside of GitHub that are trying to solve this problem and make it a better place goes back to that theme that at least they're working on it and they recognize the problem. All right. So covered that small announcement. So Warp was one of the first of many now terminal emulators that came out. Warp does a lot more than being a terminal these days. It's become an agentic editor, and I don't that in addition to being a terminal, I don't know what else it enables. It was pretty eye-opening the first time I tried using Warp. Where if you run into any problem in the terminal, you just click a button and then it goes and figures out why that problem happened, and that was magical. But now almost do nothing. Now the only thing in the terminal I run is Claude Code, you could say, and it can do the same thing. And so I feel bad for the project because it was kind of ahead of its time. But then, yeah, the path has that things have taken have gone a different route. Not saying it still doesn't provide value on its own, but it's up it's up against stiff competition these days on other agentic workflows, like the way people work. I mean. So, close that by accident. There we go.
Warp used to be fully terminal based, and now they have this desktop application, right?
Well, they were a terminal emulator like Ghosty. Where Ghosty is optimized at being a net new emulator for performance, Warp was not performance based. It was intended just to be AI based. So as you're working on the command line, it could help you, run commands, figure out what command to run, why did that command not work, or anything like that.
Gotcha. And since it's AI driven, I guess
Yeah.
file editing and that experience wasn't really first class. That's kind of secondary.
Yeah. So you could run like show me all files modified in the last day. I don't have to remember the esoteric find syntax to do that. And it would come up with that syntax for me and run it. So I could just talk with my terminal, you could say, which, it was cool, but like I said, now you don't do that as much.
Well, also you couldn't plug in your own um sort of providers, right? Or they limited that at the very least, and you had to go with their
Mm,
subscription for it.
I think
Oh,
so.
now you
Maybe
can.
not. Now you can. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, now you
Yeah,
can.
it's yeah. Because of the open source as well, they added. I use it actually. I use RAP daily still. I like it not just because I actually don't use AI much of it. I actually like Cloud better outside of it. But it has cool features. For me at least. Like I switch a lot of projects, so the switching of context is really good for me. And their notes taking is actually good. Stupid stuff, still I like it.
Wave looks pretty nice, Michael.
Yeah, I was gonna chime in on that one. So I
Running.
used Warp when it first came out, and yeah, it was okay. I mean, any terminal change for me is going to be a pretty big move because I'm in the terminal all day, every day, and I really couldn't grasp Warp. But then I can't remember when Wave came out. So, but I mean, I'm a sucker for shiny new things, so I was like, I'll try this one too. So I tried it out, and I actually enjoy using Wave quite a bit more than some of the other newer terminals. Number one, I like that the AI interface and some of the other interfaces are separate. So it's not like the Wave interface where every command is a prompt. It's like in Wave, you can open a separate tab, kind of like you're seeing here. You can have different columns or whatever. And so you
Yeah.
have your AI terminal in one spot, and then you've got your regular terminal in another spot. Then you've got these other sort of widgets that you can add on. One thing I really, really like about it, and this is really just like the most basic use of it, is their resource monitor because it's the same on Mac OS, Windows, and Linux. And I run it
Hmm.
on all three platforms. So I'll open like on Mac, I'll open iTerm and then I'll
Hmm.
open Wave and I'll use that just to monitor my system resources. Like I won't even use that as a terminal
Hmm.
because it's easier to get to than the Mac activity monitor. But then I can do the exact same thing on Windows and on Linux on those systems, and I still get the same sort of interface, the same sort of observability. So I'm not changing, when I'm
Is
looking at activity monitor or whatever the Windows thing is or whatever the Linux thing is. It's always the same.
is this thing here that I highlighted, it's able to use whatever the chat protocol is with all the major models?
I haven't experimented with that as much, but I believe so. You can hook it into your local, like if you got Olama running, you could hook it into
Mhm.
your local models as well, if I understand correctly. And the one other last thing I'll shout out is it has a browser built into the terminal as well. So if
Mhm.
you want to browse in the same interface where you're working with your code
Yeah.
or and looking at your system resources, just like this example kind of shows, then you could do that too. I don't use the file browser as much.
Yeah.
But I do use the terminal, the browser, and the a resource monitor.
Does it support vertical tabs as well down the side?
I'm not sure, but
Mhm.
yeah, this interface you could probably stack them however you want to. I usually have
Uh,
like two or
so
three.
because the one that I was so excited about, and I've started using it when as my daily driver for a terminal when I want a terminal, is has been CMux, and
Mm,
it's similar to this. It also has the browser embedded, multiple tabs, but the kicker is based on Ghosty, and it supports the vertical tabs. When you have a lot of tabs, vertical is the way to go.
mm.
Oh, RAP does that now. You can switch between them.
Oh, Warp does vertical now?
Yeah, yeah, you can. Actually, I think it released it last week because they
Oh,
changed
just
it
last week.
finally. Yeah, you can go back to the old way, which stops up front, but they have now like side panel,
Mm,
taps panel, I guess. There you go.
nice, nice, nice.
Uh, Yeah, I started to like it because of that exact reason. When you have like a ton of them, it's crazy, and you can even modify. I think they will show you. Yeah, like scroll down a little more. You can switch the views of what you
Mhm.
want to see, like the commands,
Panes
working
and stuff.
directory, branch, whatever.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Oh, cool. Well, another reason to check
Wave
out.
looks cool though. I'm pretty on RARP. I don't know how to pronounce it, but
Yeah, warp,
I'm
like
at
warp
warp.
speed. Yeah.
Warp.
How do
I'm at,
folks
I'm at,
think about the term ADE, Agent Development Environment? Because that's been a term
Oh,
for what these are, since they aren't, this isn't really a terminal, right?
yeah.
yeah.
I've just seen that thrown around.
Hmm.
I saw it recently, even in VS Code. They have this new thing called VS Code agents, and it just
Cursor did
opens a
it.
new. Oh, yeah.
What did they do in VS Code?
Oh, they have this version. I think it's in the VS Code Insiders. But yeah, VS Code agents, it is very much like this similar UI that we saw with Warp, that we are seeing with Wave, except it's just using the VS Code DNA instead. Oh, hey, no, this wouldn't be it. No. Hold on. I'll find it and drop a link in the meantime.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
trying to find the one for cursor too. Just had it up a little bit ago.
I think I found it. Maybe it's this.
Aha! That's the one. So it's very similar, except this time, just like in the other ADEs, it's replaced the file explorer and all that with a massive chunky sidebar, and you can have, just like with Warp, I'm surprised that you have your vertical bars with codecs and Claude support built in, so you can choose between those CLIs.
That's nice.
So
That's
is this like a replica of what Cursor Agent new release have done?
Yeah, I'm not familiar with cursor agents. Anyone else? It does look, yeah. It looks like it. I think,
I
Yeah.
didn't try it yet, but it was on my
yeah,
my editor was like, try the mode. And I was like, I'm actually needing to look at code right now, but maybe later.
yeah. Boy, it's like so. I've been everyone. I'm beating on a dead drum, but I've been very bullish on Conductor now, which I think was one of the first ones to develop an IDE of this or ADE of this type. And now Claude's desktop code has this look, Codex has this look, VS Code now has it, Cursor has it. So
And Tmux AI will basically put it in any other terminal you've got. Ish, you know.
Tmux, but yeah, is this like Tmux Classic, like in
It
the terminal?
it basically is it should be Tmux AI all one word, but um it if you turn on mouse support, it does let you
Like,
do some controls with that, but it's using, incursive kind of stuff.
yeah.
Well,
I've graduated from the terminal. Like I thought that was really cool back in the 1990s, but now, I don't mind the graphical graphics. Uh, but it is just remarkable what a resurgence the terminal has made. I guess you could run this inside of waveform or waveterm or CMux, TMux inside of CMux, and then you just have exceptional.
That would be wild.
Yeah,
I'm
the
surprised how
crazy
similar all of these look. Like they kind of share this same DNA with vertical bonds on the left.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you haven't been doing it, this is incredibly effective.
Mhm.
I have about 100 different sessions, not all active. Some I abandoned, but it
And
worked.
in Conductor, can you kind of filter them by here's ones I'm working on currently, or
Yeah,
kind
you
of like
can pin them, you can you can group them by repository or filter by status, or
nice.
also they've introduced a Kanban board, which is kind of nice. So you can see all of your workspaces on where they are at. Is a PR open for them? Is the PR ready to merge? Was the PR merged? And so forth.
That's well impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to comment one sidebar. When I mean, I've lived in the terminal for decades, right? So when VS Code was coming out and getting popular, I would open VS Code and then like close all the tabs and just open up a terminal, and I would use VS Code as my terminal, just working on it that way. But now I'm going back to the terminal. Well, I never really left it, but now I'm in the terminal and I'm opening Cursor so I can see the changes that the agent is making in the
Yeah,
terminal. You know what I'm saying? It's like it's I'm having cyclical motion here where I'm going to the
yeah,
terminal to the IDE, where my IDE is the terminal. Now I'm going back to the terminal and I'm
yeah.
opening up an IDE. So
Oh, yeah, it is really funny how it's moving like that. Yeah, back in the day when I made the switch at the time to VS Code and then Cursor, I always had to alias Vim because I found myself using the terminal inside of VS Code running Vim instead of using the IDE.
Yeah,
It
same
took a
here.
long time to wean myself off of that. But yeah. Let's see, where was I here? That was Warp. We covered availability. A couple minor announcements on Atmos. The Atmos describe affected command. This is what will show you the changes between two refs as it relates to your configuration. We've had the command for a very long time. We've also supported matrix output for a while now, which is outputting the format of this in such a way that it's consumable as a GitHub job matrix. We made a minor change now so that this is now optional. If you've enabled CI in your Atmos config, then you can just run this simple command and it will automatically write the matrix to the GitHub output when it's run in the GitHub Actions context. And here's what that looks like. So what's pretty nice here is you can, in one job, figure out everything that was affected between two commits, then use that to run a deploy or a plan against each one of those affected components. And that's what this is doing. So it's iterating over the matrix here and passing the component and stack. All right. And another small improvement was we have a command list instances. It helps with kind of like introspecting all the stacks and component instances you have. When you operate these commands in restricted environments where you might not have credentials yet, it was annoying that you couldn't run the command. We have for many of our other commands the ability to disable processing templates and functions. These are the things that typically will require credentials, like reading remote state. So we added those flags as well now to the list command so you can disable processing templates and functions. Atmos Pro, no significant updates there, no demos today. And yeah, any Q&A for the last 5-6 minutes today?
A question actually. I've been playing around with what is it called? Stores?
Yeah, Atmos stores.
Almost stores, yeah. And some time ago, because you guys added the identity, a role identity, which is actually not on the docs, by the way. So
It's
so they
not it's not
on
documented
the
how to use identity with stores.
yeah,
Oh,
it is
okay.
not. But that was merged some time ago.
Yeah, we did
Um,
add support for that, but yeah, I thought it
yeah,
was.
I think there's a bug on it because, like, if you have the identity set, if if you have a default identity, it will ignore the identity you set for the SSM. So it will, for example, I used it for AWS, and I want a parameter store. Forget. If I have a default, which might be a really edge case, but that's my issue right now. I'm trying to resolve. Which is if you have a default identity, for example, I use it to graph the S3 buckets I have one account where that is managed, and
Mhm.
then different accounts for environment, right? So I have assumption of the role as default for those two buckets, and then I set a different SM on each account, on each environment account. But it's not it will ignore it and try to find it on the I guess the repository default, which obviously breaks and wouldn't work. Um, so
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm doing it wrong or
Uh, I
or
wouldn't
there's
rule it
something.
out. There are a lot of
Yeah.
combinations of putting these configs together that we haven't always tested. But
Mhm.
but you know the drill. You've opened many issues.
Yeah.
So
I will open anyway.
yeah. So open a issue for that, and we'll have Andre take a look at it and probably release something quick if we can reproduce it. Uh, but yeah, and also
Perfect.
bring up that point that we didn't document how to use identities with the stores.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll open that up right now then. Wanted to bring it up. Yeah,
Perfect.
it's really cool. But yeah, actually modifying because I might be also my issues with modifying my stack to be more in. I do authentication differently than you guys suggested, which is probably my main issue. I'm switching it up, and at least one project, trying it out. If I like it, I will move it to all of them. But yeah, fun stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. For these things to work well, setting up Atmos Auth is, of course, a important part of that. So,
Mhm.
and yeah, Gene C, thank you for introducing yourself. Good to have you here. You're an AWS community builder. You do a lot of work with IAC and Terraform. So, uh, good to have
Thank
you
you.
here.
Thank you so much.
Any questions or any topics? Nope, that's all right. Feel free to post something in the chat next week if you are here, and we will talk about that.
I did have a question.
Yeah, Michael, what's up?
Yeah, I was wondering about if you're aware of the AWS Tiros. It's sort of like a reachability analyzer. And it's an example of sort of applying logic or formal verification to configuration. I'm just wondering what your thoughts are about that space. Like essentially declarative provisioning is one thing, but like maybe something that's more higher level or can be reasoned about more. I don't know if the industry is doing so much of that, but I would be interested to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I have some thoughts on it. I don't know this particular product, so I don't want to chime in on that particularly. Um, I I feel like there is a lot of talk about what come, and I think it's important to be forward looking, like what comes after IAC or what is the future of IAC? Is the future of IAC HCL or something else? Um, I I wholeheartedly embrace the utility of using Claude and MCPs and AI together with infrastructure development. But I personally still like a imperative artifact, an explicit artifact in something, whether it's JSON, YAML, or HCL, um, and having something that configures what I want, but conversationally, just through Markdown, I don't think the English language is precise enough, and I still like it to be represented as code somewhere. How we get the code, I don't care. That can be AI and generated, but a product that simply exists to provision and manage AWS in some way. We're changing. We're just replacing ClickOps with with I was going to say chat ops, but it's yeah, conversational ops.
Yeah,
And
I guess I wouldn't be advocating, sort of English as the way to configure things. It was more about maybe the product Tiros is something that
how do you
maybe
spell it?
you could Tiros, and it sort of like has fed into the reachability analyzer. But it's an example. it's not AI, right? It's more like constraint solving or formal verification. And so that's the thing. It's not AI related. It's more like a different level of abstraction that allows for reasoning in a different way. Can this network reach this other network? And Terraform might be the building block that of open, different kinds of infrastructure. But the question would be, how can you analyze that, or how can you craft, Terraform that's consistent with your goals?
Yeah. Yeah, I wish I had more insights on that one. I'm gonna have to read up on it.
Okay. Yeah, I thought I'd bring it up, because I also feel like there's a shortfall in trusting an LLM entirely to do everything correctly. It's more about guardrails and determinism to me. But at the same time, the language has its limits in what it can do automatically.
Hmm. Yeah, that is interesting. Yeah, it was not on my radar. So thanks for bringing that up.
Sure.
All right, we are at time for today. A little bit over. I want to be mindful of everyone's schedule. So with that, I'm going to wrap up our session today of office hours. If any of you use our open source or need more help at your company, Cloud Posse funds our open source through support, cloudposse.com/support. You'll find all our available support tiers. We publish our office hours as a podcast. It's syndicated. So if you do listen or want to catch up on past episodes, you can find our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, etc. Other ways to get more involved with our community is registering for our Slack community at cloudposse.com/Slack. Just enter your email and you'll get an invite to your inbox. Registering for our weekly office hours, which is what you're on today. Just go to cloudposse.com/office hours and subscribing for our monthly newsletter at cloudposse.com/newsletter. Thanks everyone for your time. Have a great rest of your week. See you.